She was desperate. Ending her baby's life was the only option. How else was she supposed to deal with everything? She kept him in the sink with water flowing continuously. But why was she doing this? When these parents had their second child, they were very happy, but they did not know their lives would be turned upside down within a few months. In 2013, Stephanie Smith, her husband, and their 6-year-old daughter were about to meet a new family member. Like all pregnant mothers, Stephanie had expected her child to be born healthy, and so Isaiah was. But, after 3 months, the little boy's health had changed and he had developed a mild rash. At first the parents did not give it importance and they took the baby to the doctor, who suggested that they use a low-dose stimulant cream without a prescription since he had been diagnosed with eczema. According to the doctor, the cream would be a remedy for his skin problem, and for a short period of time, the cream helped, and the rash improved. But his parents had absolutely no idea what was coming next. This would be the beginning of a horrible nightmare. Stephanie was unaware that putting the cream on her 3-month-old baby was going to get their lives out of control. A week after the child's skin cleared up, the rash came back much stronger than before. At first the rash had begun around the cheek, but when it reappeared it spread throughout Isaiah's little body. The parents thought it was the eczema that the doctor had previously diagnosed, so it would be logical to reapply the cream. The rash disappeared and reappeared but then went from bad to worse. Isaiah's hair began to fall out. He became sick and lethargic while his entire body was red. Stephanie and her husband had consulted several doctors, but all had the same diagnosis and all said that Isaiah had eczema. Some even suggested that Stephanie stop nursing her baby as proteins in her milk could make it worse. When Isaiah was 5 months old, the worst was about to happen. Isaiah became sick again, but this time the parents had to rush him to the hospital. The child felt weak and his skin was red, and he also had a very high fever. Stephanie naturally panicked as doctors prescribed a higher dose of stimulants to be injected directly into his scalp. Little Isaiah had to stay in the hospital for almost 5 days and the injections seemed to work as the rash had calmed down a bit. Isaiah smiled again, but he was not quiet and the worst hadn't even happened yet. The nightmare continued as the stubborn rash not only reappeared, but this time it was even more aggressive. The baby's skin had turned red almost like blood with lesions and he was in a lot of pain. His mother couldn't bear to see her son like this at all. As much as she wanted to hug her baby boy, Stephanie couldn't, just for his sake. His skin as it had become fragile. Every time his skin was touched, blisters would come out. Instead of being wrapped in Stephanie's arms, Isaiah was wrapped in layers and layers of surgical gauze. Isaiah was then covered with a blanket and put in a bathtub while letting warm water run over him every night. Anyone who saw this strange image without knowing the reason behind it would wonder if this was unsafe for the baby. It was a very unconventional method, but the water helped to comfort the rash on Isaiah's body. His mother stayed right by his side, but he still had a lot of pain. Stephanie felt so powerless and so helpless that she almost lost hope and was on the verge of giving up. It reached a point when things were so serious that Stephanie thought, this is what the rest of his life might be like, then please take him away. Isaiah always had to be wrapped in gauze, and everywhere they went, people assumed that he had suffered bad burns as he seemed to have third-degree burns all over his body. People also thought that Stephanie and her husband had done something cruel to him, and this led the family to be confined at home for almost a year. Stephanie was tired of being watched and was unwilling to answer questions from strangers who were too nosy. Isaiah's skin had become so incredibly sensitive that the family also became extremely isolated from their relatives and friends as they couldn't risk Isaiah getting any kind of infection. When Isaiah's state wasn't getting any better, his parents were unwilling to surrender. Stephanie and her husband went online and decided to investigate the matter on their own. She had not given up hope and also believed that his nightmare simply cannot be his life forever. The couple finally stumbled upon a forum on topical stimulants, and the site seemed to have information on side effects on how certain skin conditions can get worse by stopping them. The site even showed some photos of other children with the very same skin condition. Finding all this information in these images simply confirmed what Stephanie had to do. Instead of applying more cream to Isaiah's body, Stephanie did exactly what her instincts had told her all along. She stopped using the cream because it was clear that it was only getting worse. She experimented with oils and bases and tested them on small spots on her son's skin. A mixture of lemongrass and zinc applied under the gauze gave the best results, and gradually the baby's skin began to clear up. Thanks to his mother's instincts, Isaiah is now healthy and enjoying a normal childhood. He can finally be a happy child, and his mother has never been more grateful to see him like this. She can now hug him every second of every day to make up for the lost time.